Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm taking a look at something I never expected we'd see, and that is another high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam frame. So far we've seen 8 of those different Gundam frame demons. You can see all of them here right now. There is different variants of each of those Gundam frames. I just picked ones at random to represent each one, but the one we're going to be taking a look at today is this right here. This is the high-grade Gundam Marchosias. Basically, it's the Calamity War version of Gundam Hajiroboshi. So today is one of those odd days where I just got the kit in the door. I wasn't really expecting it today, so it's a bit of a pleasant surprise. So this hasn't even been taken out of the box yet, so I might do a bit of a quick build. Because it's been so long since we've seen one of these Gundam frames, some of you guys may not realize that these are fun little high grades with a full internal frame. Definitely unusual for a high grade kit, but anyway, before that, once again, this video right here would not have been possible without those absolutely awesome people over at HG Japan. So if you're looking for some Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam frames of your own, including Gundam Marchosias right here, then check out that link down there in the description. Now here we go. So first off, I have to mention that I absolutely adore this box art. It's so dark and so dreary compared to your normal high-grade box. It's a nice departure from what we usually see. It's a dark, evil-looking Gundam in front of a super gloomy sky. I absolutely love this. On the first side of this box, we've got a cool front and rear picture of what this kit will look like finished. I'm curious to see what is color accurate and what is, well, stickers. On the other side there, we've got some information about the mobile suit itself. I will pop that up on the screen right now so you can pause this and read it at your own leisure. And around then, on the other side, we've got a whole bunch of images of what this kit will look like in action. Once again, I'm quite interested to see what we're going to get with this kit because it's big, bulky, and based on a Gundam frame, which tends to get a little bit loose over time, so it's going to be interesting to see how this kit, well, how it turns out. But as for the details, we've got some posable sub-arms, some short swords up there in the binders. It's big, so we're going to be getting some impressive poses, some clawed knuckle guards, and some railguns. Well, that is more than enough about the box itself. Let's bust it out to see what we've got in here, and seems like we might have a couple of things. We've got the manual with the gist about the Gundam right there. Once again, you can pause this right now if you want to read that yourself. That right there. We've got some info on all the weapons and stuff. I'm gonna move this slowly upwards, so once again, if you want to read about any of the equipment, etc., you can pause it and have a quick read. But anyway, all in all, looking pretty cool. Let's keep going. Just in case Bandai thinks you're gonna forget, there is Season 2 coming out very soon of Gundam Build Divers, which, sadly enough, never features any Gundam frames, so get the hell out of here. And we've got something about a Iron-Blooded Orphans Blu-ray. Now onto the plastic. So anyway, that right there is absolutely everything that comes in the box. So what we get, of course, is this big old sheet of stickers, so it's as bad as you would have imagined when it comes to those red parts. And there's a couple of interesting things I can mention about this. One, only one of the runners in this kit is left over from one of the older kits. That, of course, is the Gundam frame itself, harking back to 2016 when we saw Gundam Barbatos. As for the new runners, we've got 2 multicolored runners, one big one, one small one. And as for those aren't actually white, they're a very, very light shade of purple. There are 4 of those in total, but the most interesting aspect about those is they're not actually new for this year. These are labeled 2018. So if you actually remember when the trailer for the app game came out, that was in January 2019, so these even predate that. So this is very odd. Usually you don't get a kit labeled 2 years ago unless it's a rehash of a different kit, and that's not the case right here. So obviously something was planned and didn't go through. Very bizarre. Oh yeah, also the polycaps. These are from 2013. So just in case you're not familiar with Iron-Blooded Orphans high grades, if you weren't around during 2016 when they started coming out, etc., or you just never paid any attention, well, these are high grades with a fairly full inner frame, just like you're seeing right here. Of course, there's some aspects like the head and the feet and the hands that don't have a full inner frame and are kind of held down by the armor bits. That's why they are the way that you're seeing right now, but it is pretty cool to see a high grade like this. As for the attaching of the armor, etc., it all attaches onto this one frame, and I will mention all 8 of those other Gundam frames I showed at the very beginning, and all of their variants, all have the same Gundam inner frame, so that means these are a great line of kits to mix and match together if you can still get your hands on the older kits, that is. So without a single doubt, the Iron-Blooded Orphans line of high grades is definitely a unique build if you've never built them before. But if you've built one of these kits before, any of the other Gundam frames, then you'll be very familiar with what is going on right here. I will mention I absolutely adore these kits, but they're not without their issues. But anyway, without any further ado, there is the finished kit right there. There is the high-grade Gundam Marchosias. So even though this kit right here is not as color accurate as you would hope it to be, it is still a very nice looking kit without any of the stickers attached. And that's exactly what this is. So starting right in with that full 360-degree spin, you can see there's a lot of exterior detail on this kit. I would say even more so than a lot of the older Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam frames. There is a lot of unique and nice looking surface detail all over this thing. Once again, it is not all that color accurate, but it does look nice in its pure form right here. I'm definitely digging it. It's got a lot of parts in common with a lot of other Gundam frames. It's got a bit of a red bale kind of vibe, and those arms definitely give me a Gundam Barbatos Lupus vibe. This definitely looks like its namesake. This looks like a demon Gundam. All those spiky parts, those awesome spiky shoulders, that gigantic V-fin. This thing is a beast. So before moving on, I am going to mention one more time the fact that this isn't all that color accurate. As you can see, there is a ton of stickers right here. So as for the comparison, there is what it looks like right out of the box, straight built with a little bit of panel lining. And on this side, I'm going to pop up what it should look like. So there is a lot of missing red segments, a lot of which is on the side armor, as well as up on the shoulders. But all in all, it's not so bad. We still have a nice distribution of red over here, up on the wings, the crotch, the knees, the feet, and near the neck. I'll also mention that the nub placement on this is quite old school, so there can be a lot of marks here and there, but once again, it's not the worst. As for some size comparisons, there is the high-grade Marchosias beside the first ever high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans kit, which is high-grade Barbatos. This might make it a little bit more apparent that this is kind of a pinkish, purplish color, so it is not exactly pure white like this right here would be, because I feel like the video isn't really picking that up so well. Next up, there it is side by side with another Calamity War era Gundam frame, that of course is Flauros. And there it is beside Gundam Bale, and I'm wondering if this will end up with the same fate as this guy here, because as you can see, it's kind of falling backwards because of the weight of the backpack and just how, well, I guess kind of weak the Gundam frame is. It's basically holding itself up with its wings, and hopefully that won't happen over time to this guy, but only time will tell. As for some other size comparisons, there it is beside the high-grade G40, Mars 4 Gundam, Narrative Gundam, and of course the size comparison is not complete without the high-grade Penelope. So now moving on into the accessories, and there's the high-grade Gundam Marchosias with absolutely everything that it comes with. As for hands, all we get is a standard pair of holding hands in here. However, there is Iron-Blooded Orphans options kits which have posed versions. As for the other equipment that comes in here, first off we get a shield. Of course, this is meant to have a red section on it, just like you can see right there. There is an included sticker right here, and hey, why not, let's stick it on. There it is now with it attached. This is extremely simple, like I mentioned already. Around back, it's just engraved with a 3mm peg to attach it. And speaking of attaching it, it just attaches into that big gaping hole in the forearm. And looks a little something like that right there. I will mention there is a hole on both forearms, and honestly I find this does kind of, well, it does look a bit distracting. This kit has a lot of nice lines and angles, and that just kind of sticks out a little bit, doesn't it? These arms are somewhat similar to what we saw here on Gundam Barbatos Lupus, and this form definitely looks a lot better. I liked how it kept the little 3mm hole in the dark section back here out of the way where it doesn't look all that obvious. But this right here kinda just looks a bit like, well, bad design. Next up then, we've got 4 of these tiny little knives. In typical Iron-Blooded Orphan styling, these are just solid bits of plastic. No beam weapons here, just old-fashioned metal knives. So these, of course, can be held in the hand like this. If you prefer, you could flip them around like this, or you even have the option of attaching them into the sub-arms that are hidden up here on the wings, as well as down here on the side, skirting armor. To use the sub-arms up on the wings, they just open down like this, can flip out like so, but the actual little arm segment, the holding hand section I should say, or a manipulator if you prefer, is stored away here. You need to pop that out, and then attach it in here like so. And then you can just pop the knife into there, like that. Ready for some stabby stabby. However, I will mention, like a lot of ideas in this kit, this feels a little bit half-baked. One, it doesn't look all that nice, does it? And at the same time, it's kind of weak. It just kind of flops like this. That's not awesome. As for the sub-arms on the side-skirting armor, it just pops open like this, swings around just like so, and this has the actual arm segment, or should I say manipulator, up on the top like that. Once again, the knife just attaches in like so, and it's ready to go. But I will mention, on knowing how loose these kits tend to get, these iron-blooded orphans kits, that is a whole lot of lever right there attached to this one little ball joint section up top. I mean, that is just asking to sag over time, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, there is a bit of an idea of what this kit will look like with all of those knifey army knife things all attached, and the first impression I have of this right here is this is a bit of a nightmare. There's a lot of tiny little floppy parts that just kind of don't hold together that well out of the box. Look at that. If you've ever built the bale, well, this is like an extra big, heavy, floppy variant. It's tough, I'll tell you that. Anyway, there is a quick look at what it will look like with all those knives attached up on a shelf. And I don't think if you put this in a pose, I honestly don't think it's going to hold that pose for very, very long. I will mention, however, if you do paint this kit or top coat this kit or tighten up the joints, those issues will go away no problem. But out of the box, a bit of an issue. But there's no denying it does look really, really cool. Just don't look inside of those sub-arms for too long, that's not so pretty. But it does look really, really cool. Next up then is the long, large sword. This looks very similar to what we would have seen with Gundam Barbatos. It just has some extra detailing. I will mention that this section, and this section here, the recessed parts, should be red. They're not. There also are no stickers. We do have that pretty awesome little power symbol kind of detailing on here, and it's a pretty cool little sword. And one thing that makes it even more awesome is the scabbard that we get with it. So, just like we would have seen before with Gundam Astaroth Origin, the sword can attach in here and essentially become a big old mace. I will also mention once again that this is kind of affected by the kind of dodgy design of this kit. It's only kind of just held in there, so if I do this, it can just fly off. That does take quite a bit of shaking, but it's only really held in there with a bit of pressure. Also, this scabbard is two sections attached together, as you can see here, so the pressure only comes from how tightly together that is held, so that, once again, could loosen up over time if you don't glue it. Also included in here is this little bit of a segment for holding onto it, so that just attaches into the mace sword, just like that, and that can then just attach into this polycap hole on the back of the kit, just like so. So there is a quick example of what it will look like with the large long sword equipped, and it does look pretty cool. These swords always do. But as for that big sword, let's test how well can it hold it. So there we go, there's Marchosias with that big old sword in one hand, and let's give him the tilt test. Nope, dropped right down. But I guess that's what you'd expect from a fairly large sword like this. Once again, these iron-blooded orphans kits come with the hugest of weapons, but a lot of the time have extremely loose joints. Again, all that will take is some minor modification to make sure that that is tightened up, but out of the box, it could be a whole lot better. So now moving on to the build and the articulation, and starting from the head down as usual, but first actually, this kit right here suffers from the issues that, well, every Gundam frame-based high grade has had since the first one, and that is certain parts tend to loosen up all the time, and well, maybe they shouldn't have crammed so much onto it, so my biggest suggestion with this kit is get rid of this, get rid of this, and get rid of this, and you've got a pretty awesome kit. All of this stuff out of the box is a massive issue for weight, so if you're not going to paint or tighten up the joints, this is the best aspect of this kit. This stuff is just a bit of an issue. Once again though, if you do paint it up or tighten up the joints, that won't really be the case anymore. That is just talking about this as a straight build. Anyway, the neck on this guy is your standard polycap neck that we've seen for a long, long time. So that does give us a little bit of a giggity, but not the greatest one. It is a bit on the tight side. There we go. Anyway, there it is looking all the way up, all the way down, somewhat limited, side to side tilt, and there it is, side to side. That can go, well, off. As for the shoulder joints on these guys, it's the same again, so the polycap in there gives us up and down as opposed to forward and back. That is one big ball joint in there, giving a lot of... I didn't do that, it just did that itself. Gives it a lot of round and round in there. The shoulder up here is just on a hinge, so that is up and down separate from the arm. We've two moving armor parts, and I love the look of these shoulders. They're so cool. We've got this inner armor bit here. If you take a look inside there, it's not the prettiest, but this does cover that up quite well. This part then looks awesome. It can go down and up. Looks especially savage while up. Inside the shoulder then, we've got... I'm going to take this part off for this part. This shoulder joint is one of the most nightmarish parts of these kits. So you move this around, it can move up and down like that to raise the arm up and down. But this is a terror for doing this. If you move it a lot, it will separate like this. So if you've built any of these kits, posed them quite a bit, you realize that every single one of them does this, and eventually that arm will just pop off when you're posing it. We also have full rotation there at the upper arm. There is that bend at the elbow, so just beyond 90 degrees. Not too bad. The wrist there can move round and round and round and round like this. And we do have an inbuilt weapon here, which I forgot about, which is this claw sort of thing. So in order to extend this, you pop it out. Move those pegs up one then, so you get this right here. Of course, that is meant to be yellow on the top, but we know about the color accuracy of this kit. Moving on. Next up, down at this waist, we get a little bit of forward and back right here, as well as a bit of forward and back at the big old ball joint in there. This gives you quite a bit, but once again, when something has a lot of motion like that, it does mean it can be quite weak, and this will pop out again quite often. As for the skirting armor, they can move up and down like so. There's a little bit of wiggle because these are ball joints. These come together on the runner, but you can snip them in half for independent movement. Inside the hip, we've got forward and back, which moves both legs together, so just a bit of a rotation gimmick inside of there. Because of this armor right here, you do not get the full spin at the upper leg, just that right there. Right there is your kick all the way up to the front, so that is quite limited, not even to perpendicular right there. Perpendicular? I mean parallel. This does have just a solid, basic butt flap back here, so you're not going to get much of a kick out to the back either. And as for the splits, there's the legs all the way out, so we get that full splits. The bend at the knee is quite good. It is a double jointed bend at the knee, so not too bad for something so bulky. Down at the ankle then, it is a ball joint right here. That extremely unique pivot that is in these Gundam frames, which can pretty much bring it all the way over like that. And the toe can move up and down like so. On the ground then, there it is all the way to the front, not too bad, blocked by this big old piece of armor. There it is all the way to the back, so it's okay. And as for the side to side, I expect this to be pretty ridiculous, and yeah, it most certainly is. So we got the winged backpack back on. We've already seen that this can open and rotate at this point. But as well as that, we also have the wing all the way up to that point, all the way down to that point. And that's as far as it can move out, and that's as far as it can move into the body. So all in all, it's quite posable. Not as much as the bale, but pretty cool. As for the side skirting armor, I'm going to do this detached because it'll just fall off. We do have a point of rotation here. It attaches via a ball joint, and like I showed you before, there is a ball joint up top there that allows this to move, but it's not the prettiest looking thing around. Super long side skirts have always been a bit of a thorn in this line's side, but I guess it could be worse. They have rejiggered the ball joint there, but yeah, it's good, just not great. Also, almost forgot to mention there's another onboard weapon in here, and this is the laziest thing ever. So this is meant to be a railgun, but all it is a bit of plastic. A bit of grey plastic stuck on there. That right there is the railgun, not in any particular color, and this tab is the only moving mechanism to it, and you know, that's a bad excuse for a moving mechanism there. Ugh. So I guess right there, that is what it's meant to look like open. It's not great. It's barely holding on at all. And that's what it looks like closed up. Once again, odd design right here. So when it comes to the build and the articulation of this kit right here, it isn't the greatest. The articulation is quite limited, especially in the legs. And when it comes to the build, it loosens up all the time. So you're going to find you're going to have to keep re-tightening, re-squeezing joints back in, etc. It does get a little bit tedious. So it's not the worst, but there is an awful lot of micromanaging parts to make sure it doesn't just fall apart. Again, it's not necessarily a hand grenade, but joints like to keep on loosening because it has so much bulk attached to a pretty weak frame. Once again, paint it or tighten it, but out of the box, a bit problematic. So that right there is it for the review, and I might as well rip this band-aid off instantly. As an out-of-box build, I'm so sad to say that the high-grade Marchosias is a bronze tier gunpla kit. It honestly pains me and kills me to say that because I was really looking forward to this. If you've ever built the high-grade bale, then you've got a general idea of what to expect. Just put more weight on top of all of that floppy droopiness, and then you've got this right here. It looks absolutely fantastic from a distance. Get in too close, there is a lot of cheap looking aspects, a lot of hollow parts. Of course, it's not very color accurate, and some parts just look downright cheap, like the joints on the side skirts, sub-arms. They just look, man, they look bad. But from the right angles, this thing looks absolutely killer awesome. From the front, and just checking out its upper body, head, shoulders, it looks so awesome. But once again, it is quite loose out of the box, so this right here is not a kit for beginners. If you're ready to paint it, ready to tighten it up, ready to detail it up a little bit more to hide those not so pretty parts, then this is going to be one savagely awesome looking kit when finished, but out of the box, it is a bit of a disappointment. Even if you put in all the basic effort like tightening the joints, sticking on the stickers, etc., it's still gonna be a bit on the disappointing side. Either way, if you're like me and you love your iron-blooded orphans kits, it's still one you definitely want in your collection. And of course, you can get one for yourself through that link down there in the description through Hobby Link Japan. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, I cannot finish this video right here without thanking each and every one of you guys who watches my videos. Whether you just watch them, like them, share them, or support me on the channel memberships and Patreon like Craig Jerry, Kaiser721, Bolwick, Tyler Sanders, Caleb Engelhart, and Hank Handsome. Oh yeah, where's my Hajiroboshi? That kinda looks like this, but you know, without all the bulk. Hopefully, we're gonna get one.